said to Samuel, "How long are you going to grieve over Saul? I have rejected him as king over Israel. Fill your horn with oil and get going. I'm sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem because I have found my next king among his sons." "How can I do that?" Samuel asked. "When Saul hears of it, he'll kill me." "Take a heifer with you," the Lord replied, "and say, 'I have come to make a sacrifice to the Lord.' Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will make clear to you what you should do. You will anoint for me the person I point out to you." Samuel did what the Lord instructed. When he came to Bethlehem, the city elders came to meet him, and they were shaking with fear. "Do you come in peace?" they asked. "Yes," Samuel answered. "I've come to make a sacrifice to the Lord. Now make yourselves holy, and then come with me to the sacrifice." Samuel made Jesse and his sons holy and invited them to the sacrifice as well. And when they arrived, Samuel looked at Eliab and thought, "That must be the Lord's anointed, right in front." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Have no regard for his appearance or stature, because I haven't selected him. God doesn't look at things like humans do. Humans see only what it is visible to the eyes, but the Lord sees into the heart." Next, Jesse called for Abinadab, who presented himself to Samuel, but he said, "The Lord hasn't chosen this one either." So Jesse presented Shemaiah, but Samuel said, "Nope, the Lord hasn't chosen this one." Whew! Jesse presented 7 of his sons to Samuel. But Samuel said to Jesse, "The Lord hasn't picked any of these." Then Samuel asked Jesse, "Is that all of your boys?" "There is still the youngest one," Jesse answered. "He's out keeping the sheep. Send for him," Samuel told Jesse, "because we can't proceed until he gets here." So Jesse sent and brought him in. He was reddish-brown, had beautiful eyes, and was good-looking. And the Lord said, "That's the one. Go anoint him." So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him right there in front of his brothers. The Lord's Spirit came over David from that point forward. And then Samuel left and went to Ramah. This is the word of God for all people.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. Who's ever been to Cedar Point? Oh, I love Cedar Point. My wife really likes roller coasters, except, we gotta have an except the first hill. Who doesn't like the first hill? Hands up if you don't like the first hill. The long, slow wait. Except for, they've made a couple of these new roller coasters where they're just like, get going, bam, and then you're gone. But most of us know what we're talking about when we say the first hill, right? First, there's the ominous, "Thank you for going to see the point, keep have a good time," right? And we all kind of go, "What did that guy just say? Was that important? Do I need to know everything he just said? What happens if I didn't listen correctly and I missed it because he talked so fast?" And then the train starts to go. And then we hear it. And it begins. The first hill. Samuel is God's prophet, and he has a lot that he is tasked with doing. He's got to oversee all the judgments, but he didn't got to do that anymore. God's divvying up the tasks. You see, what happened was, that's a famous colloquialism from back home, by the way, in Kansas. You see, what happened was, is something that's often said by a bunch of farmers when I'm about to hear something that I probably shouldn't hear because I'm not old enough. But that's a story for another time. So, the Israelites had all come to Samuel and they said, "We want a king like everybody else." And he was like, "Well, got God. God's your king. And they were like, yeah, but we can't see God all the time. And the Hendersons next door, they just got a brand new king, and it's huge. Have you seen it on their wall? It's like 56 inches. HD, it's curved, it's beautiful. So if the Hendersons got a new king, we got to have a new king. So Samuel, he goes to God and he says, these people want a king. What do I do? And God's like, fine, give them a king. I got a guy. Bam, Saul. There you go. Bam. So they have Saul, and Saul is their king. And Saul has been given many responsibilities, so Samuel's load is lessened somewhat. So his main job now is to go around and do prophet stuff. Right? Prophet stuff. He gets to go place to place. Right? Offer up to the Lord, lead the worship. They separated, right? He just got to handle the religious stuff, essentially. Still a lot of it, don't worry. But Saul doesn't quite get it. Saul has this problem. He thinks, I'm the king. I'm the king. I am the king. He gets real full of himself. And so God, would tell Saul, if you do this, you will have victory. And so Saul would listen to him. Well, one day they're in a battle, and God says, this is how I want you to do this. And Saul says, all of them? I'm going to say no. I'm not. And so God says, you didn't do what I told you to do. Your job is to do what I told you to do. You may think you're the king, but I am God. So Saul displeases God, and so God says to Samuel, all right, Saul's out. And so Samuel is mourning over this. This is where our scripture today comes in. He's mourning, and he's distraught, and he says, this guy was the king, and you picked him, and I anointed him, and he was the king. That was messed up, and what do we do? And God says, how long are you going to grieve over him? He made his choice. He made his choice. But I will pick a new king. So he says, go to Bethlehem and go to Jesse and his kids. And I like that Samuel is afraid. That's like in the Old Testament, when you backtalk God, bad things happen. Right? In the New Testament, when you backtalk God, bad things happen. If you guys remember John the Baptist's dad, right? An angel goes to him and says, you're going to have a kid. And he says, well, we're like 95. And the angel says, did you backtalk me? No talking for you, right? And then he doesn't talk until John the Baptist is born. So you don't backtalk God. But there's Samuel, and he's like, Saul ain't going to like that. If I go around anointing new kings all over the place, he's not going to like it. And God says, tell you what, I've got a plan. Take a heifer and just act like you're going to sacrifice. It's covered. It's an alibi. So he gets this alibi. So he goes to town, and I like the layers of fear, right? So Saul, not afraid of God, right? Is that going to go well? No. Samuel, afraid of Saul, right? But really, why is Samuel afraid of Saul? Right? Bad things happen to prophets. It's kind of part of the job description. So he's afraid of Saul because he kind of likes this living thing. But at the same time, he's afraid of God. So Samuel's in this weird place of tension. He's afraid of the king, but he's afraid of God. And so he has to kind of go like, I'll do it, but he's not going to be happy. So God provides him cover. But then he gets to town, right? And we're told what? That everybody in town is? They're afraid of him. Oh, it's just great. Everybody's afraid of everybody else. I wonder if anybody ever saw Samuel coming and they were like, oh, good. Because I have to imagine that would get really tiring. If every time somebody saw you, they get afraid of you. Right? They're worried. Oh, good, here he comes. Right? Yeah. That's like how people feel if I walk into a bar and they're there. The pastor is here. Quick. Water! I need water! I need all the water! I wasn't drinking that, right? They get afraid, and so he comes to town, and they see him and they're afraid. They're afraid. Because he's the head religious honcho, and he's there, and the local priest essentially is like, oh no. That'd be like if the bishop walked in right now. And she's like, I just came to hear you preach, and I'd be like, that's cool. Why are you here? I didn't do it. Whatever you heard. Who complained? No. So he comes to town and he pretends like he's just offering sacrifice, but he casually is like, oh, and also, can Jesse and all his kids come? I'm not going to tell him no, so all of them come. So he has this big cover story that has been established. And that's what it's all about, right? Establishing a cover story. Because he's going to do something that is not only going to change the course of history, but that is going to change the course of somebody's life. And if they're not careful, this person's life could be threatened. Now, there are some really great parallels here. And throughout Lent this year, we're going to look at King David, because when Christ comes, we are told that the people expect, anyways, that he is the next David. This is what they think the Messiah is going to be, is the next David. So I thought we need to look at David and really understand David. So this is the beginning for David. And so he is a young boy, right? Not exactly powerful. He's kind of frail, vulnerable, right? In fact, he's so unimportant that he's not even invited to the ceremony. When he says, bring all your kids, Jesse's like, yeah, well, he doesn't mean the youngest one. Right? That's David. And so we have, frail, vulnerable. If Saul hears that this young boy's been anointed king, could be killed, David. Interesting parallel, don't you think? Christ is born, Herod hears about it, sends in all the troops. Yeah? See what's happening here? And so, he has this big cover story. Now, my wife also has a cover story when we get to the front of the line at Cedar Point. I have to go over here. I forgot something in the locker that we paid for that is secure. I forgot it. And I can't ride this roller coaster without it. And I'm like, you just don't want to go up the first hill, do you? She says, no. Don't like the first hill. We all establish cover stories when we're called to do something, if we don't want to do it. Season of Lent challenges us to take time to look within and to ask ourselves, where is God and where is God lacking? And as we always do, right, we scramble to establish a cover story when we have to do some hard work. We suddenly have volunteering to do, or we got to get the oil changed and the tires rotated, or we really got to read that book that we brought right now, or we got to go and visit that person or make that phone call. We have to establish a cover story for why we can't spend time with God. And it's more pronounced during Lent, because during Lent we're told to take time to spend with God, and so we've got to find a cover story for why we don't want to have this potentially life-changing thing happen. We don't want to get on that first hill, because when we do, we realize something. And this is something that my wife is afraid of. Once you start, once that shoulder bar is tight, and that guy is giving that speech that you cannot understand into that microphone before he says, okay, and they give you the thumbs up. Once that happens, you ain't getting off. Right? The only way you're getting off that ride is if a red light comes on in that control booth and they say, oh, we gotta shut her down. Once you hit that first hill, there's no getting off of this ride. And that's what makes the slow climb the worst part. Right? Click, 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 click. You're heading towards the inevitable, and you are no longer in control. Hands up if you don't like not being in control. Yeah, gotta be in control. Drive everywhere. Right? Literally. I cannot tell you the last time I was in the car with Lindsay and she was driving. I know. It's a problem. So that's the problem with the first hill. We're no longer in control, and that's the problem that David has. He's not in control of his life anymore. When Samuel anoints David, he is called to something higher, something more important than just himself. He has been called. He has been chosen. And he has been anointed by God to steward and shepherd God's earthly kingdom, to take care of God's chosen people here on earth. And that's a heavy calling. And from the moment that Samuel sees him, click, 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 David is on the roller coaster. Now, roller coasters do not only do click, 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 right? Has anyone here ever been to Disney World in Florida? My parents took me once when I was little, and there's this log flume ride. I honestly can't tell you what movie it's based off of or cartoon. I just know it's got annoying animals.
Splash Mountain.
Yes, Splash Mountain. And they have this famous line, and if you're not paying attention, you miss it and you get soaking wet. And the famous line is, what goes up must come down. And then the log drops, right? And if you duck, you get water in the face. So long lines in the summertime, not really the rest of the year. So David is on a roller coaster. His life is going to be a roller coaster. And roller coasters cannot always go up. So too is our life. We are all on a roller coaster. We cannot always be up. Sometimes we're going to be on the way down. Sometimes we're going to be down. Sometimes we're going to be upside down. Sideways. Going through a booster. Getting our picture taken. Oh. Right? I think the photo station of the roller coaster of life is definitely your driver's license photo at the DMV. Right? Yeah. Then whenever you get pulled over, they're like, this does not look like you. And you're like, hold on. And then they say, oh, yep, it is you. I see the grimace now. I see it. But we're all on a roller coaster. And once we get on it, we can't get off. So what does this mean for us? And what does this mean for David? It means that we need to check in and stay connected with God throughout everything in our lives, because if we're checked in with God when we're at the top of the first hill, but not when we're at the bottom of the first hill, it's not like we can get off. If we stay connected with God, then maybe, just maybe, we'll get through all the low spots and the high spots and the middle spots. And when things just seem upside down, and we're really praying that good old bar doesn't malfunction, right? There's a good moment of panic for you. Even despite the fact that I slightly understand physics and something about inertia and gravity, I'm still just like, I understand that I am going fast and it is pushing me into the chair, but I'm pretty sure if this thing goes, I'm out. Right? And you panic. Once you start on that first hill, you can't get off. And I have bad news for all of you. If you're here today, you're already on the roller coaster. Sorry. But I'm not sorry. That's how God works. We have all gotten on the roller coaster, kind of like David. We didn't really choose it. We were doing something else, and then somebody said something to us, or our parents had us baptized, right? United Methodists in the house, child baptism. And so we were all on this roller coaster, and we didn't really choose it, but there's nothing we can do about it. And so during Lent, we say, why not? Since we're on this first hill and we're on this roller coaster and we can't change that, why not check in with God and see how things are doing? David is beginning the climb of the first hill. And I don't know exactly where it's going to take him just yet. Just like we don't know exactly where our own roller coaster is taking us. But I can tell you this. This is not Roller Coaster Tycoon, where we build the roller coaster. Unfortunately, folks, God is the roller coaster tycoon. God has built the roller coaster. We don't know what's coming. God knows what's coming, but God's got us no matter what's coming. So we might not know what's on the other side of that tunnel at the bottom of that drop, and we might not know what comes after we're upside down because we're too busy worrying that we're going to fall out. But God has us as we engage our roller coaster and go on our journey. So during this season of Lent, I challenge you to check in on a deep level, to get uncomfortable, and to find God in your soul and see who God is calling you to be and has called you to be. Because we're all on the roller coaster. So we might as well check in with the ride engineer while we're at it. Amen.